Curt Cignetti signs a massive extension at Indiana. And here on the Monty Show, presented by the Advocates at theadvocates.com, I am not surprised by much. I think we have talked about this in sports. I'm not surprised Curt Cignetti got a contract extension. Make no mistake about it, that is not shocking. An 8-year deal that pays him $11.6 million per season. Jake, this feels like an overreach to make sure that he doesn't go to Penn State, which I don't think he was going to go to Penn State to begin with. I'm really surprised by this deal from Indiana.
Yeah, well, I think you can't leave it in the hands of the highest bidder, if you're Indiana. And I think that Penn State is clearly in a situation where, they need a coach and they obviously value Curt Cignetti for obvious reasons. And I think that you just kind of had to put that to bed and show a public, it's almost like a public show of force, if you will, right? Like, hey, we're going to extend our guy. We're going to take care of him. We're going to make him one of the highest paid head coaches in college football. We're just going to put the whole thing to bed. So then that way we can move on with the season. We can move on with chasing a national championship this year, which is absolutely what they're trying to do. And we can get on with it. But I do think that 8 years is definitely hefty. I do think that this continues the narrative that universities are more than happy to do, super long deals and deal with the ramifications of the buyout later on, if it for some reason were to go sideways, because I feel like that's what we've seen multiple times now in college football. Started with Jimbo, and we've just seen several of them rattled off now. The latest, obviously, James Franklin. So I just think it's hey, lock your guy up, and if you have to deal with the buyout, it is what it is.
Yeah, I think the details of this contract are shocking. It's an 8-year extension. He is now one of the highest paid coaches in college football, and he's going to average $11.6 million, and its total value is $93 million for a gentleman who has won nothing. He has won nothing. And I think when we look at this story on Curt Cignetti, I am not bitter about it. I would love to have a $93 million deal based not at all on merit. This is where we are, right? This is where we are in college football now. We overpay. We are terrified that we're going to lose our coach to Penn State. So we're going to throw him money off of a season and a half of college football. We're making Curt Cignetti the highest of the highest paid. We're putting him in a realm that only rarefied air exists. And he has won nothing. He hasn't won a Big Ten championship. He really just won his first big game over Oregon. And you just handed him $93 million and a new 8-year extension. I'm not even trying to be a red ass about this. I think this is what college football's become now. And you look at the transfer portal era, you look at how much money is being thrown around to fire James Franklin. He's making $20,000 a day. There's some offset language on that when he gets a new deal. Like, he's making right now, James Franklin's being paid $20,000 a day not to coach football. That's who we are. And this deal with Signetti can only go poorly. He could win a national championship in the next 5 years, and I don't think it's worth $93 million. I don't. He would have to go on a run like a Nick Saban style run. 5-7, 3-5, 5-7, 7 out of 11. He'd have to get just crazy. And I mean, you'd have to build new trophy cases at Indiana. You'd have to, I don't even know what you would have to do to recoup your $93 million investment. I don't think there's any way. I don't think there is any way that you make this money back, because I just don't think he's proven to be a championship caliber coach at this point.
Yeah, I mean, that's obviously the big indictment with this deal is like, hey, like, this guy hasn't won anything yet, really. And we just gave him an 8-year deal and almost, pushing $100 million at 93. And I just think it's one of those deals where there's a lot of risk. Certainly, I think that the Big
Hmm.
Ten is doing this thing where they're paying their coaches a lot of money, and I think that the again, not to say that Indiana would do anything like what Michigan's done, or anything that happened at Penn State would happen at Indiana, but I just think that we have seen in college football that there is there's a certain risk factor. I mean, things happen. We see these events go down in college football, and then we're like, oh man, his buyout's $1 million gazillion. Woe is me. And it's like, no, dude, like you guys came up with this deal. Like this guy, and again, I'm not privy to all the behind the scenes details, but I would agree. I don't think this guy was like, off his rocker to go to Penn State. I think he had been pretty prideful about what he's doing at Indiana and where
Yeah.
their team is at, coming off of a big win against the Ducks. So like I don't know, man. I just think that we're, everyone's like, oh, well, he's making more than Saban made. And, but it's like, yeah, at the same time, the market's also higher than when Saban was coaching,
But
so
you
it's
guys
like,
understand they bumped his pay $3.3 million a year. They took him from 8.3 to 11.6. I'm outraged by it. Listen, I understand that you wanted to do everything you could do to keep Curt Cignetti at Indiana. Totally get it. You didn't have to, you bumped him $3.3 million. You don't think he'd have stayed for $10 million a year? For an $80 million deal, you had to go to $90 million on this. And
Google me.
I guess. I mean, a $15 million per season buyout. Okay. He's not going anywhere. Congratulations. You're paying Curt Cignetti $90 million.
Yeah, I just think it's really irresponsible overall. I mean, I listen, I understand, hey, you got to extend him or he's going to get poached. I get it. I don't even disagree with that.
$90 million.
But $90 million is way over the top. I mean, I tend to agree that you just need to get him in the neighborhood of highest paid coaches on the low end. I would have looked at it and I would have said, okay, hey, here's the top 10 highest paid coaches in college football. Let's get him in the lower third of that percentile. Let's get him in, let's make him like the 8th highest paid head coach in college football or something. And then when he wins a natty, then we can bump it again. Or like, you know what I mean? Like, there needs to be, because the problem is now it's like, what's the reward for winning a natty now? If it's not financial, I mean, just to say that you did it, like, I don't know. I just think that I'm sure I haven't even looked at the comments section yet, but I'm sure everyone's saying that we hate the Big Ten and we're pissing all over this. But for me, I look at it and I say, everyone was outraged that James Franklin is making 20 bands a day, but then we're all sitting here complaining that we're crapping on this. Like, it is fiscally irresponsible, in my opinion, to pay unproven commodities. And again, I don't disagree. Great win over Oregon. But again, that's a regular season win. That's not a postseason win. And with all due respect, like, you're not going to get some free pass in the college football playoff this year. You're going to play a better team, and there's going to be a lot more on the line. So when you're paying, what is it, 11.3 a year, I believe?
11.6.
11.6 a year to be a one and done in the CFP if he doesn't win, then how celebrated is this going to be? That's my point. And then to double down on it, bro, if Signetti's making this, what's Ryan Day making? Ryan Day's got to get paid more now.
Here are the coaches. These are the coaches that are making less than Curt Cignetti. Dabo Sweeney at Clemson at 11.2. Steve Sarkisian at Texas at 10.8. Dan Lanning at 10.4, Oregon. Kalen DeBoer, 10.2, Alabama. Brian Kelly, 10.1, LSU. Bill Belichick at 10 million at Carolina. And Lane Kiffin at 9 million at Ole Miss. He is now on par with Lincoln Riley at USC, Ryan Day at Ohio State, who's making 12.5, and Kirby Smart, who's making 13 million. He is the 3rd highest paid coach in college football. Fuck out of here with it. You got to be kidding me. I am telling you, It is not. It is not, in my opinion. This is you. You better win national championships because you cannot justify this money at this point in his career. Sorry, man. I think that I understand that Curt Cignetti has brought something to Indiana that they've never had before. But honest to goodness, you married the first girl you smashed in your entire life. You're the 25-year-old who's never been able to score, and now Sheila, the Walmart manager, said yes, and so you put a ring on it. That's what Curt Cignetti represents. I don't know.
Been won.
I don't know how else to describe this because he's won nothing. He's done nothing. He has shown you very little. And now you're hooked to this dude and you're paying him $93 million. This is stupid business. Yeah. This is, in my opinion, you cannot. He'd have to win multiple national championships to make this worth it. And hell, he's in position now to win a playoff game. He's in position now to compete for a Big Ten championship. And I understand it's only October 16th, but they haven't scheduled anybody. And the Big Ten's scheduling, orgasm where they don't play anybody now is gonna come to roost. But this just feels like is Curt Cignetti irreplaceable at Indiana?
For them, he is, apparently.
Because that's what you're saying with this. That's what you're saying with this. We don't feel like we can do better than Curt Cignetti, so we're going to overpay him. We're going to make him the third highest coach in the sport. And I am amazed by it.
Yeah, I think that you at a minimum with this deal have to win 2 national championships to make it worth it. I think you got to have at least 2, if not 3, to make it worth it. And I think I think you're exactly right. I mean, it does have all the makings of, hey, small time program, landed a hot shot in Curt Cignetti, and now he's got some traction, and they won a big game, and now a position came open, so they were like, nope, we can't afford to lose you, bud. So here's a bunch more money, and it's like, all right, well, now every time they lose, I got to bring up the contract, right? I got to start being like, all right, well, you're paid this much money, and you haven't won a national championship. So, look, I get that Indiana hasn't really had a football team the last however long, 30 years or something, 20 years, 10 years, however long it's been. And I understand that he has resurrected them, back to relevance. Totally get it. And I can respect that. At the same time, though, there is a reason that certain guys are paid the money they're paid, right? And there's a clear outlier here between Curt and the other guys. Dabo's got natties. Ryan Day's got natties. Kirby's got natties, right? Those guys have all won. And now you're talking about being paid more than, a lot of guys who have way more experience and have done more in college football. So it's
wild.
Everyone's going to say, I guarantee it, everyone's going to be like, oh, well, Monty, the Big Ten TV deal or the private equity thing, like they've got money. Who cares? Like, what's the big deal? And what I just don't understand how people miss on this is it's not just about the fact that whether the Big Ten can afford it or not, or whether Indiana can afford it. Right. It's the premise of it, bro. Like you just said, hey, we're going to pay this guy, basically more than all of 3 of the top head coaches in college football because we don't want him leaving. Now, I understand you don't want him leaving, but you have to be smarter than paying this guy $93 million over 8 stinking seasons when he's not won anything. So that to me is the issue. It's not a Big Ten sucks or they can't afford it or like it's like the whole, it's like the car narrative, right? Hey, like when you spend money and you have a really nice car and people want to hate on you because it's expensive, right? It's like, okay, well, the premise is, hey, I wanted to buy the car, like it's cool. Like the car's worth it. Like I've earned it. Like it's not a problem. Like I've won my national championship in life because I can afford it
Yeah.
comfortably. But Curt's not done that, dude. Curt hasn't proven himself yet to a level that justifies this caliber of pace. So if I get, like, if you put the AP on the screen, if I get Indiana versus Bama and they lose, or if I get, better yet, let me double down, Indiana versus Ohio State in the college football playoff or in the Big Ten championship game, and you lose that game, I will guarantee you this, the next time we do a show after that game, I will be on his ass saying, hey, dude, you're getting paid all this money. You just lost that game. What are we doing? That's the difference, dude. You're at Indiana. Now, if you were getting paid this much by Ohio State, probably wouldn't have as much of a problem because Ohio State definitively can afford it. And Ohio State definitively is one of the best programs in the country. That's the difference. Like, it's not that hard.
This deal guarantees 90% of his compensation should he be fired. That's wild for a guy. And again, I don't even dislike Curt Cignetti. And I think Curt Cignetti has done nice things at Indiana. Like he's made them relevant.
I'm even down to say that he deserved a raise. I'm good with that. I'm cool with that.
But this guy has been Indiana University, Purdue, Elon, James Madison, Indiana for 1.5 seasons. And you start looking at the fact that, yeah, he's 17-2 and he's 11-1 in conference. That's awesome. Went to the playoff. That's great. He has literally done nothing, and he's now the third highest paid. This is out of control.
Okay, so he wins a national championship this year. Let's say he wins a national championship this year, gets poached by a better opportunity next year, right? Let's say that next season something comes open that he wants to go and take. Bro, you're on the hook for $83 million. You understand that? Like $83 million, bro.
Yeah,
a lot of money, bro.
Listen, I hope for Indiana's sake he wins. I really do, because this stuff, when a guy has this profile and has done this little, these risks are massive.
But hey, congratulations to Curt. You're never going to have to work again, so great job. Great job. You know? I mean, great job, dude. Honestly.
Yeah. Tony says Fed keeps printing more and more money, destroying the middle class, and head coach extensions will grow into the $100+ million eventually. There you are. People with full outrage over what someone else pays someone. Like we are regulators of what someone should be paid. I also thought we agreed that contracts should be honored. I'm not outraged because somebody got paid. This is a terrible business decision. I don't begrudge the guy. I tell you all the time, we got to stop shaming people for being rich. Am I shaming Curt Cignetti in any way, shape, or form? No. Oh. Go get your bag. This is a really bad business decision for Indiana.
This isn't a Signetti conversation. This is an Indiana making a dumbass decision with this contract decision. Because that's what this is, dude.
This is not knowing who you are and what you are. That's what this is. And I feel very strongly, history, you don't pay Jimbo what they paid him. Oh, you do. They're paying him. How does that work out?
Yeah.
Like you're asking for trouble, man. I mean, I do not by any measure think that Curt Cignetti is a villain here. I think it is outrageous that Indiana paid him this money. No, your profile does not indicate that you should be paying this money. It just simply does not.
Yeah.
And I think that when you look at where Indiana is as a program, you're not a $93 million program. They have done, I don't mean to be redundant, boys. They've done nothing. And it's these kind of business decisions that always come back to kick you in the balls because it feels good right now. Again, I'll just keep saying it feels good. She likes you. She says that she wants to go to homecoming with you, and you're going to go home, and after the dance, you're going to smash, and now you guys are going to be tied to each other for 18 more years of financial obligations, right? That's what this feels like. And you're not Ryan Day, who just now won a championship.
You are not Marcus Freeman, bro. You're not Marcus Freeman.
I'm amazed by it. And hey, it is what it is. Again, I just look at the fact that he is paid like, do you understand, you guys, that they paid him $3 million more than James Franklin was making at Penn State? You paid him more to stay in Indiana than they would have paid him at Penn State. Like, this is just a bad business decision, man. You 8.3 to 11.6. That is from a Yugo to a Benz AMG, dude. That is a huge amount of money. James, how have I been kicked in the balls? Dude, don't start. It's very early in the show.
Bro,
it's very
how do you
early
graduate from butt buzzers to getting kicked in the balls, dude?
Like, I have no idea, Yeah. TJ Beck, we have to realize on Curt, he's 64. I bet he only goes 5 more years. I think that's what Indiana's betting on, short term, not long term. Okay. I'm hoping for Indiana's sake that he wins multiple national championships because Indiana doesn't have the financial wherewithal to sustain mediocrity. And this league, I will just continue to tell you, UCLA's coming, USC's coming, Oregon's coming, Washington's coming, Ohio State's there, Michigan, I hope they're dead. Penn State, they're all better programs than Indiana. And they're all down, with the exception of Ohio State. Michigan's down. Penn State's down. Oregon's down. Washington's down. SC's down. UCLA's down. They're all this is my point. UCLA and Indiana. Right now, today, obviously, Indiana's in a better spot. UCLA is going to have money, and they're going to hire a significantly better coach than they've ever had. And USC is already winning. They look significantly better. Now, can they beat Notre Dame? We'll find out. But you better remember, I'm not worried that Rutgers is going to steal Indiana's thunder. I'm worried that Indiana is not one of the 7 best teams in the Big Ten next season.
Mm-hmm.
Or the season after that. Because, again, is what it is. IU is still 4th best in the Big Ten. I don't know if that's the case or not.
It's not. Listen, dude, it's when you're talking about contracts, it's all about what the dude has done. And specifically, what have you done for me lately? And I don't think this is hard to understand, man. I think people want to be a stick in the mud. People want to be, they want to be a pain in the ass about this and try to fight us on this. But the reality is there's no way to justify this contract for him. You can come up with any kind of argument you want. You can say that we hate the Big Ten. You can say whatever the hell you want, dude. There is nothing factual to justify the raise at this level. I agree that he should have gotten a raise. I'd have been at 10, not 11.3, and I certainly wouldn't have been at 11.3 for 8 years. I'd have been at 10 for 4 years. That's what I'd have been at.
I understand overpaying the guy. I 100% understand overpaying him. This goes back to what I said yesterday when I talked about Mark Cuban. This is like this private money deal today. This is why and Michigan's Board of Regents might have hit the nail on the head today, because as much as a bunch of scumbag losers as all the leadership at Michigan is, They said today in their meeting, we have a spending problem in this league. We don't have a revenue problem. We have a spending problem. And I wholeheartedly agree with that in Indiana's case. Boy, did you just back up the argument not to have private money come into the Big Ten. Because if you're going to get private money and you're going to spend it on paying, understand what you did here. You've now twice extended Curt Cignetti. You have paid him like he's the best coach in the country. And he has not won a playoff game. He has not won a Big Ten championship. And he's not the best team in the Big Ten right now. And you paid him like that. That's what I'm struggling with. And maybe the cheating scumbag losers in Ann Arbor got it right. We have a spending problem. Maybe that's exactly right.
Yeah, and I think that I think that the private equity thing, as it relates to having a spending problem, I mean, there's definitely smoke coming out about it just being kind of like a, people having fear, I should say, that it's a payday loan kind of situation, that you're getting, you're just getting this payment. And then, if you're unable to build equity off the payment to repay the value, now you're in a really bad spot. And, you combine that type of a situation with, a spending problem in the league. And now you've taken a league that clearly is in a reasonable spot financially before any of this private equity nonsense. And, and now you're just not in a good spot. And that's why I say, like, there's a difference between running a league that's got a lot of revenue and just not running it well versus running a league, with private equity and agreeing to a certain amount of growth on that deal. Having commitment that way is a very dangerous game to play in college football.
Yeah, I'm shocked by it. I am shocked. I am shocked by it. Let's get your thoughts on Indiana before we move on. And the obvious secondary question here is, what does this do to Indiana? I've been telling you all week, Curt Cignetti's not going to Penn State. He's not. I don't believe he was ever a real candidate for Penn State, so I don't think it changes their calculus in hiring a head coach at all. And again, I'm going to go right to this question here. Can Penn State improve on James Franklin? Can they go over and beyond James Franklin? Who I would also point out is doing an interview on College Game Day this week. So that should be fun. I don't know, Jake. Without Curt Cignetti, my opinion doesn't change. I think they're going to have a really tough time improving on what James Franklin did there.
Yeah, I definitely think, not only improving on it, but finding a candidate that, has any type of track record that James was able to put together. I obviously his shortcomings in big games are obvious, but the reality is you were in contention every single year. You were in a place where,
certainly,
I believe it was looking yesterday, I think it was 8 of his 12 seasons they were a double-digit win team, which, part of that's the Big Ten,
dude,
but part of that is they had good teams. And, you had some greats come through there, right? Abdul Carter, Saquon Barkley, like, you've had some guys. And
he's put dudes in the NFL.
Yeah. So, the program wasn't really in that bad of a spot. I just think that people were tired of getting to the final week of the CFP selection and not being put in. And then when you finally got in, you were unable to finish the job. And even if they had, even if he had won a national championship, I'm curious, what the leash would have been overall, because then the conversation would have been, okay, well, now you've won one, now where do we go from here? And we've seen what happened with Ryan Day. Ryan Day was on a similar trajectory of getting there, but then never winning and finally won. And now we haven't had to talk about him this year. So I don't know, man. I think it's, if you look at, everyone's still on the Matt Rhule train, which I understand, but I, obviously it doesn't seem like he's that interested. I think at that point, then you're probably looking at, a lot of people like Dan Mullen, but I'm not sure that he's qualified enough to do this, even with his time at Florida. Just with where they are, they're in a really unique position. Like, this is not a This is not see the advantage Signetti had with Indiana was, hey, they weren't anything, so anything is better than nothing, and that's what is kind of fueling
That's interesting.
his success. The difference is at Penn State, dude, you've been in contention for the CFP basically every year for the last 5 years, and you fired the guy because it just wasn't good enough. That's a totally different situation.
Yeah, I think they're going to have a really tough time improving on James Franklin. Now, you need to find somebody who can win big games, because James Franklin, and I say only, one of his only flaws was he couldn't win big games, games against significant opponents. I mean, you're thinking that Matt Rhule is clearly still the number one candidate there. He doesn't exactly have a sparkling track record against top opponents. But can he go and recruit Abdul Carter? Can he? Like, that's the biggest question about the next guy, because I think whoever they hire is going to have all the money, the facilities, the fan base, you name it, they're going to have it at Penn State. So there's almost no excuse not to win. And I think when you hear the name today, the new name, I just don't believe this can be at all true, that Urban Meyer is a candidate. Well, because when he was at Florida pre the knuckle deep scandal, pre the disaster that was Joe Paterno covering up sexual assault of minor children for 30 years. Yeah. Urban Meyer was politicking for that job. And I think that's all this is. I do not believe that Urban Meyer is ever going to coach another college football team. He's making money. He's playing golf. He is living life. I don't think he ever comes back. So I don't know what it would take for me to believe that Urban's a legitimate candidate. I just don't think he is.
Well, and I just think, obviously Urban is an iconic, Ohio State guy. So, I mean, set all the shenanigans and inappropriateness aside, you can't at Penn State hire a guy like Urban to be your head coach, dude. That's just not. I just don't know how how do you sell it to the fans? How do you sell it to the public? How do you say, yeah, you beat our ass all those years in Ohio State. Why don't you come be on our team? And then you get to answer questions about, like, fostering a violent environment at Florida. Some of the drama that went down at I just, and then obviously the Jaguar situation in the NFL. Like, I don't know, dude. I just think it's a really tough, it's a really tough sell. And I think that, Pervin is the ultimate poster child of, like, hey, this guy could be an incredible hire, but it's never going to happen because it just doesn't make sense. And so that's why I say, like, we think that Indiana took a risk paying Signetti what they paid him. Like, Penn State is going to have to overpay to go and get a guy that is competent enough to do this job at the level they need it done. That's what I think people don't understand. Like, dude, we're talking about, like, having to overpay to go and get the guy that they really feel like can make a difference, because I just don't think that going and getting, Dan Mullen after James Franklin, Dan Mullen doesn't quite have the goods. It doesn't really have the ring to it that, like even Matt Rhule has. That's what I don't quite understand, how they do this.
And I guess you and I are going to fight to the death on this one. I think Matt Rhule would be Matt Rhule. I'm not going to call Matt Rhule a home run hire. He would be a really good hire.
But don't you think that, yeah, he's a really good coach, but if you look at Matt Rhule, I'm saying that after what we've heard Matt Rhule speak on the last few days and his players and everything, it doesn't really seem like he's all that available. Doesn't really seem like he's super excited. Now, again, what else would he say?
Yeah, exactly right.
What else would he say? Okay, cool. Okay. Let's say that they were to hire him. The only question they'd have to answer is how the hows and whys of Matt Rhule getting further than James got. That's what they would have to answer. Like, that's the obvious thing.
Yeah, Here's Matt Rhule on Pat McAfee today.
It's with my team. It's just unbridled honesty. Tell them the truth. Tell them exactly the truth, and don't BS them because they'll know. Having other schools maybe be interested in you is pretty cool. But I don't do that during the season. I don't mess around with that. I don't play that. And at the same time, this is not a jumping off job. This is a destination job. This is one of the greatest places in the world. This is a town of 300,000 people. This isn't everyone says like Lincoln. It's 300,000 people here in Lincoln. Like, I can do whatever I want here. I have a great young team, the youngest team in the Big Ten. Think about how good we'll be next year. Now, I'm not thinking about next year, but where we are right now, like, we're learning. Think about where we're going to go with Dylan and all these guys. So I refuse to be distracted. At the same time, it's when it's your alma mater, you have to show it love and respect. And I hope, and I love Pat Kraft. They'll find the right coach for them, whoever that is. But like, this is a destination job that should be a national bully, that should be a beast. And I think we're making our way to doing that.
Is that I'm not leaving? Well, he didn't explicitly say I'm not leaving, but I mean, there's clearly an effort going into saying like, hey, there's 300,000 people in Lincoln and Lincoln's amazing and I can do everything here. Why would I leave?
I can do anything I want and they're going to get their guy. And
yeah,
it is interesting. And I also think the messaging coming off of Epstein Island is very interesting. Terry Smith, they're still talking about why James Franklin got whacked.
Yeah, it's a reality. So we tell the truth in the building, and we all failed Coach Franklin, right? That's why he's not here. We failed him. And so we have to take ownership in that. And as we move forward, we have to correct it, right? We want to play for him. We want to play for us. But at the end of the day, it's the game of football that we love. So every guy in the locker room has their own why. That's why you line up and play every snap.
Okay. I mean, that is...
Dude, the guilt in the room must just be immense.
They fired... Look, I like Terry. He is a veteran guy. He's been around that program. He was the exact right guy to be the interim. They fired James Franklin because he failed that institution for a better part of a decade. That's why they fired him. How many times has he been the league candidate somewhere? I don't know, like USC?
Mm-hmm.
A lot. It's not like James Franklin. And again, this is where this conversation comes all the way around. It's not like James Franklin is irreplaceable, but how many guys can replace James Franklin and then take it to another level? It's a really good question. Because when we're talking about Curt Cignetti making 11 point, I can't even say it. That's wild money. What are you going to have to pay somebody to replace James Franklin? On top of, and you better hope he gets a job, right? So that you don't have to pay him nearly as much, the offset language that's in his deal.
Yeah.
Which essentially is, hey, if he gets a job and he's making $10 million, we have to pay him $10 million less, right? Like that's, but I'm telling you now, Penn State's not a $15 million job, $13 million, $11 million. Can you imagine Penn State paying somebody $11, $12 million and on top of James Franklin's buyout?
They clearly aren't hurting.
No, well, they're not, but this is where we get into, we have a spending problem.
Yep.
You put yourself in a place with a coach who doesn't win big games where you got to pay him $49 million, $20,000 a day. You're paying James Franklin $20,000 a day not to coach your football program. Who made that decision? You did. James Franklin, I think the ceiling was 2 years ago. They're not better than they were 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I tried to tell people, and nobody wants to listen to old Monty. I tried to tell people, average ass Aller and this football team We're not ever on any level going to compete for a national championship. With James Franklin, the head coach, and Drew Aller, the quarterback, yeah, it's not happening. Fernando Mendoza is why Indiana is competing at the top of the Big Ten right now. It's as simple as that. It's as simple as that. And, you know, like you look at these redonkulous buyouts, Jimbo Fisher was never going to win there. Mike Elko's probably never going to win there. Yeah, you're paying these guys wild amounts of money. And I look at Kalen DeBoer, really good hire, very good money. Steve Sarkisian at Texas, really good hire, really good money. You're not seeing them. Texas doesn't give a rat's ass if Steve Sarkisian goes and takes the Penn State job. They're Texas. They can get any coach they want.
Yeah.
Right? You're Alabama. You can get any coach you want. Penn State clearly cannot get any coach they want. Indiana just paid Signetti $93 million because they can't get a coach that they want. He's the top of the mountain, Mom. Curt Cignetti, who when we used to have, you know, Social Security and Medicare in this country, he'd be old enough to qualify for it now. See what I did there? Like I just threw it in.
Google me.
I threw the kerosene on top of the fire.
Attaboy.
It just is what it is.
So I said, yeah.
And this goes back to the Big 12. The best football team in the Big 12 has a former high school football coach and a bunch of bought talent. Are we done with the days of go get an 18-year-old kid from California to be your quarterback and you better develop him and teach him to be that? I think we are.